Welcome to another episode of the Microdose podcast. I'm your host, Gareth Kaatze, and this week we speak to a doctor who's redefining divine masculinity and how that intersects with practicing medicine. Dr. Ryall Hamlyn has been a GP in Ballito for more than 30 years and is the founder and director of the Wellness Family Practice. In this episode, we speak about Ryall's journey from traditional medicine to a more holistic approach. We go through his multiple spinal surgeries. We speak about divine masculinity, where we are wounded as men in the modern culture, and how the 12 pillars of life can start to transform and shape your life for the better. Ryall is not your regular GP and integrates holistic practices as well as life coaching to help his patients reach their ultimate goals. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as we try to explore the intersection between well-being, spirituality, altered states of consciousness, and just bettering oneself. I hope you enjoy this episode. So if you're listening on Spotify, please click the bell notification or give us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment or subscribe to help us grow the channel. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you. This is the Microdose podcast, where we break down how to level up your mood, enhance your creativity, better your performance, and overall life using microdosing, psychedelics, and holistic hacks. Whether you're curious about psychedelics, want to optimize your performance, or are just looking for new ways to elevate your day, this is where your weekly dose of inspiration starts.
Yeah, welcome to the Microdose podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. If you could give us a brief background as to who you are, your history. Yeah, give us a background on who Dr. Ryall Hamlyn is.
Yeah, well, Gary, thanks first of all for inviting me. And I know that we've had many times over a beer or a glass of wine, we've had chats about my journey and chats about your journey. And it's been very interesting to follow your journey as well. But if I could add any value to your podcast, I'd love to. And I've got a huge story. It's never going to fit into the short podcast that we're doing today, which is long enough. But I am celebrating. You know how many years it is since I graduated?
How many?
Take a guess.
20.
40, brother.
Oh, no way.
40.
Wow.
Class of 84, Stellenbosch University. I'm 64 years old. Class of 84 out of 150 in our class, 123 are having a graduation celebration of 40 years in December.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So Stellenbosch University, I'm so pleased I studied there because we've got a lot of practical experience and firsthand in the wards. And it was great. It was a great university to train, great professors to train under. And I did my undergraduate there, and then I met my wife Gina in nursing at Grace Hospital in Pietermaritzburg, and I also worked through Edendale and Northdale hospitals in Maritzburg. So a lot of mixed. What was unique about those hospitals is that the private practitioners were giving the same standard of service and work to the government patients, which are on in pensions or in chronic indigent patients, and their own private patients in the wards, and private and government patients lay in the beds next to each other. It was a unique hospital, and it was great for training. But after that, I lined up quite a few other mission hospitals. It was Mordo in Charles Johnson Memorial Hospital for 6 months, and then I worked up in Underberg, and I had a practice up there, and there I learned a lot of bush experience, literally going into the clinics. At a clinic the size of this room with a little bed and a queue a mile long outside of patients wanting to see me. We used to go up into Lesotho. We used to do... So I got a lot of real hands-on experience, and I learned to speak a medical Zulu as well.
What were you always interested in the medical profession? What made you choose to study that did you know from a young age?
I did, Gary. I've always had one of the traits to being a good family practitioners, having a human-centric approach. And I've always had a human-centric approach to the way I've engaged with people, my friends. I've been popular amongst my friends. I've always got a story to tell, So I think it was the human side mixed with the science, and specifically I've come to really acknowledge and reflect the art, the creative side of medicine is huge. And I think that's where some doctors don't have that really well developed within them, that intuition, that sixth sense,
Yes.
that's the ability to communicate creatively and aptly. And so for me, it's always been about seeing a person, managing them for their condition, but always explaining and giving back to them in their own language that they can understand, what's wrong with them and how they can get better. And to try and it's gradually evolved into a form of longer consultations, which were executive medical consultations, so to speak, where we could give an hour and a half of our time and not just do an ECG, lung function, blood pressure check, history, questionnaire. So it got into that in executive healthcare. And then when I was about 40, Gary, I decided that if I was going to have the executive CEO of a company come and see me about his health, I should know a little bit about business, shouldn't I? So I studied through Manchester Business School.
Okay.
And I did a year and a bit. And it was a advanced management program, like a mini MBA. So it was an intense course at the age of 40. And I then knew that my target market were the CEOs of companies and of board members and businesses. And I was concerned and interested in them developing their own health journey. And so it started in the form of coaching, and I just gradually evolved into, eventually I did a coaching course through Mind Valley University. So there was the Manchester Business School course, that was great, and then years of experience, and that was my new practice, which was 15 years. It lasted, and I've been 15 years in another private practice before that, so 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where's your practice based, and how would you describe it? Is it different to a traditional doctor? Is it kind of more holistic approach? Or,
yeah, that's a good question. People come into my offices and they quite frequently comment, and they say, "Oh, this is a nice space," and they don't always quite get what it is, but I know what it is, because when I designed that space, I knew there were certain ergonomic factors that are very, very important, because I've had this neck surgery and spine surgery. And so my desk, I've got a standing desk as well as a normal desk.
Yeah.
My laptop height, position of my neck, the way I engage with patients across the room, the way I've designed the space, and with it, the Pantone color that reflects light, very similar color to this, actually. It's a very calming color. It's known to have a Pantone reflection of calmness.
Okay. I think it's one of those waiting rooms you want to wait a little longer and
you don't feel afraid when you step into the private doctor space. And so it's very different to a normal practice. It's just a very calm, tranquil space. It's like a home. And the reason people comment and say, "What is it about this place?" is because I spent a whole weekend beforehand lighting candles and saging the room out with incense and praying through the room. And every single person that has will ever step into those rooms has been touched spiritually beforehand, not knowing that they're going to actually walk in or not.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my belief, and my belief was make this place work. And I do integrative medicine.
Okay.
Which is combinations of lifestyle management. I do functional medicine. That's also a little bit of that. And
what makes it integrative and functional?
So for example, your integrative medicine might be, say, for example, somebody comes to you with a hamstring injury, for example. So the hamstring injury would be, standard medicine would be a prescription diagnosis, maybe send them for a scan, get the hamstring injury gauged, and then explain to them it's time of rest and rehabilitation, and off they go to the physio or to the biokineticist. Integrative is where you actually take far more hands-on approach. You examine the patient. If they need a scan, they need a scan. If they don't need a scan, I can actually feel exactly where the hamstring is torn. Integrative medicine, one of the approaches that I give is I offer them peptide management. Peptides are special advanced protein molecules which enhance the healing process to be a lot faster and more efficiently. And there's a few that are out there. BPC 157, TB 500 brings your blood supply in there. It attracts a much more rapid response of healing. I often inject collagen straight into a wound like that. And collagen is another peptide that's just brilliant. your patient's actually walking, jumping up and down the next day.
So with these peptides and collagen, just to expand on that, is it, it's not something that's damaging to the body? Is it something that's helping it heal, or is it destructive to the body, like possibly, I don't know, cortisol done too many times?
This is such a great question, because what it's making me know with you is that you're inquiring about your leg injury, which is a hamstring tear, and you're also wanting to know, is it natural and how's it going to harm me, or is it going to harm me or affect me?
What the effects, side effects?
Yeah. So while we're getting ready and preparing for it, I'm explaining this and I'm answering these questions. That's a collaborative approach, and functionally you are going to be responsible for getting your leg right. I can guide you in that journey, and it can be with the collagen injection or with the rehabilitation program that you'll get from a physio biokineticist. It will also be, why did you get the injury? You got the injury because you ran too quickly. Why did you run too quickly? Well, because you forgot that you'd left this at home and you had to quickly run around. Well, have you had your ADD attended to? Because maybe that's why you forgot to take your Ritalin that morning if you're on Ritalin. Hello. And that's why you got the injury. So the whole life lesson could come out of a little calf, a hamstring tear.
Yes.
Instead of it just being a hamstring tear prescription. Cheers. I get a lot more out of it. So does the patient get a lot more out of it. Yeah.
I think that's a good chance to go into, where you've learned from your own injuries from the past. So if you could walk us through what gave you insights into starting a more integrative and functional practice, and what kind of journey did you go on? I believe there's spinal injuries and surgeries. So can you walk us through?
So it's a very interesting thing of how, when you think of something and you maybe hone a skill, when I have a better understanding on that subject, very often the next day or a day or two or a week later, somebody's in your office with the exact same thing. It's the energy attraction that we put out there. I could go to a function the night before, and the next day, well, who walks into our room with somebody who needs that exact prescription, But what happened to me, Gary, was that in my early 40s, I had a series of lower back injuries, and it was through lifting heavy sails of windsurfers. And in my 30s, I wasn't fit enough. I don't have a huge body. I've got a medium-sized body, and so strength was never really one of my greatest things, and I didn't have enough time for exercising. And so I injured my low back, and I started to lose function down my left leg, and I'm still numb down my left leg, L5. And so I went for an operation which allowed me some flexibility. 3 months later, that operation was... it failed because the level below that went, and so I had to go for another operation. And 3 months later, the same thing happened. So in 9 months, I had 3 spinal surgeries. Each one puts you back 4 to 6 weeks, and your recovery is just longer. And
in your recovery, are you in bed? Are you bedridden? Can you walk? What kind of what's the level of intensity?
So in the beginning, right, nothing, no activity. But you learn very quickly, and you've got to recover fast. Get a biokineticist and a physio program to actually do all that work. But I'm already doing things like adjusting the way I bend and lift, and how I move, and how I position myself. I noticed, though, that a lot of people were coming in and seeing me while I was recovering from my back injuries and my back surgeries. And I started to see these people go to a physio, go to a biokineticist, and they're trained in this area. I'm offering them, well, they're needing to be offered more information.
Yeah.
And if I'm offering them that information, then the value that I'm giving them for their recovery is going to be so much better, and they're going to recover so much better. So it goes for granted that they need to be taught these things. I think you mentioned to me pain is your teacher.
Yes.
Or pain can be your teacher.
Pain can be a teacher.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. So when you're experiencing spinal pain, recovery pain, post-operative, and you remember that pain, you want to do everything possible to try and avoid it. So my approach immediately started to come into integratively coaching your back injury patients or your back disc, chronic back problems.
Yes.
With prolapsed discs and that.
Why do you think so many people have chronic back problems or prolapsed discs? Do you think it's just you never taught to move properly?
It's now neck as well. So if you look at my habit, hopefully, is to sit upright, and with my neck, my chin horizontal, my ergonomics must be right. But if I just do this, which is what most people would be doing right now, is slouching.
Yes.
In a position like this, and with my laptop and my rounded shoulders, I'm going to start sternal pain, overdevelop my trapezius muscles. These neck muscles are going to go up. My ergonomics, so I'm going to get tension headaches. That's the I'm going to end up with some neck problems.
Yes.
And so my spine relates to my neck. So what really happened to me was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned was in my immediate post-operative recovery, and pain being the teacher. I wasn't allowed pain medication because they were afraid I would vomit and turn my neck after the surgery.
And what surgery is this after?
So this was back of the neck. It was a bilateral, 2 levels, 2-level foraminotomy. So in other words, C5, 6, and 6, 7. The holes in the bone were drilled open. I was in this position, so they drilled it from the back, drilled open to free the nerve and free the disc, and just to remove any offending, pressing disc tissue on the nerve.
Okay.
And that caused referral down my arm. I was of pain. I was becoming weak. I was dropping things. My grip strength was affected. My triceps was definitely affected. I had no triceps. It wasted completely away. I've managed to get my triceps back through training and rehabilitating. So it was serious. I had numbness, pins and needles. I'm still not numb in certain places. So for me, having chronic pain was debilitating enough. Going through the process of I've got to work, and I've got to put on a brave face. I've got to smile, and if I can't smile, then I'm not going to have a good day. So I had to make the most of it in every possible way. So I researched every way I could possibly to enhance so it wasn't just prescription medications, it was natural methods of healing, and whatever it took for me to relieve my stress and tension and to actually engage in a good quality day's work and have good sleep at night. So one of the things that I was doing post-operatively, I was really, really waiting for pain medication. And I phoned this friend of mine in London on WhatsApp, and I said to her, Sally, you must send me some of those jokes because I'm in agony and I know that laughter is a medicine, haha. So she sent me a whole lot of jokes, and for the next half, 3/4 of an hour, I literally feasted on these hilarious jokes. And Gary, after half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, I asked myself, what's my pain level like now? And then the sister came with the pain medication. Yeah. It was so much better.
Oh, wow.
So, you can't, unless you've experienced something and gone through a dark place and endured what you've had to endure, pain can be a wonderful teacher for you. And I think it can be your ally. Yeah.
What do you think the lesson from the pain teacher was for you? And do you think there was like an emotional or spiritual cause was it just an injury related to something you did physically, or was there something deeper at work to the cause of the injury? And what was your relationship like to surrender throughout that process?
Well, both. So it was an injury-related condition, but it was also what was happening in my life around at the time as well. So I was too busy. I was busy with another project. I was engaging in my busy practice, which was at its peak, working 45-hour weeks, Saturdays, alternate Saturdays, night work sometimes. And I needed to be at peak earning because of the stage of life that I was at as well. But what was happening was this outside stress, and then internally what had happened is I'd had injuries. I came off a surfboard, went over the falls, and landed on my head in the sand.
Oh.
And I immediately felt the pain going down my arm, and wiggled my legs, and they were moving. I wasn't quadriplegic, and I wiggled my arms, and this one wasn't moving so well. And it was about 4 months after that I eventually went for the surgery. Yeah.
Yep.
But Gary, the interesting thing about the lesson that I had to learn,
Yes.
the lesson I had to learn required me to be in the dark night of the soul. I had to be in the darkest place before the morning light rises and shines through the darkness. And I was in that dark place for many, many reasons. What was to me, what was to me, I'm losing my train of thought quickly. Sorry about that.
Take up.
What I had to do in that dark place is I had to come through to acknowledging that something really more than just a bit of an operation had to change. It wasn't just the surgery, Gary. Gary, there was an entire lifestyle change that I had to embrace.
Yes.
I wasn't active and fit enough. I wasn't eating correctly. I wasn't spending enough time in my marriage and my kids. I was too busy with other things. I was wasting time. I wasn't productive in all of that. So there was a huge misbalance. And I had to go through a moment where I had to say to myself, unless something changes, I'm not going to get my outcome that I'm looking for,
Yes.
which is good healing. So I started the process of prehab, because there was going to be the operation, and then was going to be the post-operative rehab. My prehab started a long time before, in learning how to meditate.
So sorry, is this, I don't want to bring back to learning how to meditate, but is this, what number surgery is this that you
Okay, Gary, so I cried out in my dark night because this was surgery number 6 had been completed, and I was going for surgery number 7.
wow, see, that's a lot of surgeries.
Yeah.
Wow.
Surgery number 7, and it was the most brutal and the most painful of them all. So no one wants to face that number of
Yes.
surgeries, and each one has left me with some form of limitation. And I certainly was not in a place to be really fit enough to give out of my best to others, and that's my career. And certainly now I was starting to drop things with my hand, and that was not good. But when I went through that grueling time, it was, I've got to learn before
Yes.
the lessons. And the lessons started with, for example, previous 6 surgeries, I thought of everybody else before myself. So the people that I was with and the greater community, the population, my patient base, got all the attention. I actually came last in the list of attention. But that changed, because if previous 6 surgeries, I'd worked until 5 or 6 o'clock the evening before, got home, made sure that my stuff was packed, got in the car early the next morning, went, checked myself into hospital, got a pre-med, and then went and had the operation same day.
Yep.
Discharged a couple of days later. This time, I decided that I needed to take a sabbatical beforehand, and I took myself off to France. And with Gina, my wife, we went on a very romantic holiday in Provence, and I started the preparation of what was to come, what was to become my final surgery in my spine, because never again was I going to endure what I had endured. And I was needing to take with me some life lessons. And it was a cry out from the dark night of the soul of, what more is there that I need to actually engage in, and what more must I give? What more must I take? What more must I present? Is this my calling in life? What more is there to it? But what must I accomplish to be my greatest self? So I think, Gary, I think what's happened is that after that, I spoke to my Pilates instructor, and she mentioned to me, I think I know somebody who would be able to help you. And I'd asked for a person to come into my life to train me, to coach me.
And you're obviously looking for someone deeper than just a personal trainer by the sounds of things.
Gary,
Or are you looking for someone
I
to
wanted a personal
show you the
trainer.
Okay.
I wanted a personal trainer, but I wanted somebody that actually could have a very much more lifestyle
Yes.
handled approach.
Train your whole being
My
as
whole being.
opposed to the
And I realized,
biceps.
yeah, you know, Gary, there's this. I put my hand up basically prior to the last surgery, and put my hand up and said, "Whoa, WHOA exclamation mark! Whoa, stop! Whoa, I need to slow down, and I need to pause, get off this running treadmill, stop racing around and chasing yourself, and start to heal." And Aaron presented himself to me, Aaron Green, a personal trainer, and he presented himself to me, and when he did a character analysis on me, he said, "You know the story about the tortoise and the hare?" He said, "It's the tortoise and the horse." He said, "You're the horse. You're the stallion." He said, "And you're still galloping." And he said, it's going to be slow and difficult for you to learn to slow down. I didn't realize how many years it would take me, because I've been training with him for 4.5 years now, and to actually learn that process of slow is fast, less is more, and get more quality out of your training and get better results as a result of that.
Do you think if if it was the horse versus the tortoise, are you running away from something that it's going so fast? Do you think that was maybe a mechanism of the past, or do you feel it's just habitual in today's modern culture that you kind of adopt this never-ending work
what you
mode as maybe like a masculine drive of today's workforce or something? Yeah,
that's what I would say is definite answer for me, is the running, chasing, racing, having to be productive, having to be skilled in the workplace, be a leader. And
there's a guilt feeling if you aren't productive at times.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm
it's
looking
such
at
a
my
practice
shoulder
to sit still
to
and
say,
be-
what's next? You know?
Yes.
There was always something to present itself next, and put myself later in the pecking order. There's always going to be time for Ryall at the end of the day or at another stage. The tortoise and the horse. So, in this process of learning to receive more of myself, I started learning the art of meditation. And one of the best environments to create is a tranquil environment like you've got here. But in my garden, I've got a tranquil environment. And I started to learn to engage in garden, sitting in the garden on a favorite bench in a favorite spot, and getting into meditations. And it was very interesting. I had to ask myself, what is this feeling that I have inside of me of chasing, of racing, of what am I running away from? What am I escaping from? And Gary, it was a spiritual lesson that I learned. And during that time, I was discovering a lot and journaling a lot about my childhood. And an interesting thing happened. I started to think about myself as a baby, and is this possibly what occurred to me? I was doing a course on dreams and interpretations of dreams.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, that was in Australia. I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and go until 5 because it was Perth time, 9 a.m. And I did that for 3 years. But one of the 12-week modules was on dreams and interpretations, and I used to get this recurring nightmare, and this recurring nightmare of being chased down the passage, down the stairs, and then out the house and down the back veranda, and I couldn't run, and my legs were stuck, and I couldn't scream. My voice wasn't coming out, and I was terrified. And then I would get caught by this demon, literally chasing me, and then I'd wake up, terrified. And that was a recurring dream that I had frequently.
So what did it mean for you?
The penny just dropped. And I asked my mum. She said to me, my older sister was born. Then she fell pregnant. And during this pregnancy, she had a kidney problem and required emergency surgery. Oh. And she was quite far pregnant, in mid-term pregnancy. she had to have a miscarriage, an abortion of that baby, and then had the kidney operation. And the gynecologist and the surgeon both said to her afterwards, "I'm sorry to say this, Mrs. Hamlyn, but you shouldn't have any more children. It's going to be dangerous to your health and you could die. We nearly lost you now." And then she did fall pregnant with me. And she had she would have gone through the question of, should I terminate this pregnancy? And she would have been approached by the gynecologist, and because I met him and I knew him, to have a termination of pregnancy. And even so, I thought to myself, I would have been running away from those forceps. I would have been fleeing for my life. Where could I run to? Nowhere.
And helpless. And
helpless and couldn't scream and had no voice. I think I was shown that image. And funny enough, I asked my mom, remember that aunt of yours? Wasn't she upset when you fell pregnant with me? And she looked at me like this. She said she was very stern, wasn't she? And she was a very stern woman. And could well have said, you can't have that. Get rid of it. And that would have been the conversation. Can guarantee it happened.
Yeah, there's a beautiful book. It's actually behind you. They called It Didn't Start With You. I think it's Mark Willen.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how he also speaks about how trauma can be inherited, and it, can go further back ancestrally, but also can be these traumatic births that then imprint on your epigenetics and even like an energetic or symbolic memory, because I think you're unconscious, and people maybe don't realize this, and it maybe gets so dismissed with young children, but you know, unconsciously you can retain that memory on the deepest level, and it will arise in a dream, and that's the way it would communicate with you, that there's like something to work through there.
I did. I worked through a lot, and Gary, that was the part of the me needing to put myself first and spend time in solitude on weekends, reflecting and journaling and catching up. And I tell you, there's great benefit to being at my stage of my life and having the precious time to be able to do that sort of thing.
Well,
huge benefit.
There's I can't think who's quoted as, but it's he who has a big enough dream doesn't need a crisis, and that's trying to catch these things early on before you have the injury or the surgery. But for so many people, I think maybe the dream's too materialistic or too one-sided in one aspect of your life. Maybe it's just your career, maybe it's something else. So the dream within of who you are and this bigger exploration as to who you are as a being gets overlooked. So I would love to chat a bit about, what you've learned from this journey, looking at, I'm sure from these surgeries you had PTSD and trauma and a number of, and having experienced burnout from the high pressure of modern day work and stuff. So, why do you think so many people in life have to have this dark night of the soul? It's almost like the universe waking you up, like, hey, there's more to it than this rat race, or,
Gary,
such a calling to connect with your body and your soul, and your emotions and unresolved stuff.
It's almost like we should be wanting and expecting the dark nights and the challenges, because we should never pray for there not to be challenges. There are always going to be challenges. We should pray for the ability to overcome those challenges and for us to learn the lessons through those challenges.
And to have the strength.
And to have the strength. And
to have an open heart through the challenges.
Yes.
Is a big
and
one.
to endure them and to come through victoriously.
Yes.
So I believe that what happened to me, and this is part of what you were alluding to, is that I often get asked, Gary, now a lot more lately, gee, you haven't seen you in a long time. Ryall, what's changed with you? What is it? And I have to say to them, it's a combination of many different factors that were all contributory towards becoming what I was. And those factors, when they are all integratively incorporated into your life as a discipline, one at a time, meaningful as it is, accomplish a skill, overcome an obstacle, just very, very neatly and orderly, your life starts to fall into a better place. And that's basically what happened to me. I had so much trauma over such a long period of time, that was in combinations of things. It was trauma in my physical health, and my nutritional health. My sleep was not right. My marriage was not right. Financially, economically, there were a lot of factors that were all taking place at the same time. And it gets quite lonely when you got the same as most other people, but no one to really turn to.
Yes.
And I think in industries like myself, practitioners are lonely because we take on everybody else's problems,
yes,
but just minimize and sweep under the carpet our own.
Yeah, you guys are almost put on a pedestal.
To know it all.
Yes.
And to have the answers for it, as if we've been to have gone through it ourselves. It makes you a better practitioner if you've been through trauma, and if you've had to go through depression and you have to take an antidepressant at some stage. I think a lot of people have. Let's face it. But to know what they do and to know how they work and how you're supposed to feel out of depression versus in depression. And is there another way of feeling than just this feeling that I'm feeling right now? Because I certainly wasn't this feeling my whole life. How long has it been? Well, I don't know. 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? Geez, 10 years. Well, you haven't been well managed with your condition. And what other ways have you considered coming right other than just with medicines?
I guess other than a passive role in your own healing.
Yeah,
because the more holistic, integrative, functional role is a lot more active.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline and work on your end. And I think it's a worthy question because some people are like, I'm happy to take the pill, I don't want to do the work. You're like, okay.
They do.
But
I think what's really important is when they do come in and ask with genuine curiosity, that I see that you've been on a journey and I like what I see. How can I learn the same thing? Then I've got a captive audience. And then I know, you mean business. All right. This is how we're going to go. I then give them my worksheet and some material to go through and to read through. And then I ask if they want to come back and they want to actually engage in more in-depth work in the form of more collaborative coaching.
Yes.
Yeah. And not only involving myself, and involving other people as well, because I think that we'll probably hook up a form of network one day with coaching. I'm pretty certain. But knowing that a lot of people need to learn a lot, and if you've got knowledge and you've got wisdom to impart freely, just do it. Yeah.
I think it's a great point to touch on, is to have that embodied wisdom.
Yes.
Like you walk the walk and talk the talk, and you've lived through the practices you are teaching people. And I think for a lot of people that maybe, can coach someone without having never faced a dark night of the soul or worked through surgeries or traumas, and come out the other side wiser and better and stronger. And, there's that saying, you can't lead someone to the top of Everest if you've only been to base camp. And I think a lot of people have only been to base camp, and it's fine to acknowledge if that's where you are and it's out your depth, but maybe that's why there's a draw to you from these people, is you may be energetically attracting the right people that are called to you at that time, but it's also, hey, I've authentically worked through this.
Yes.
What are some of the 12 pillars around life? I've heard you speak about this before.
Yeah. So Gary, if someone comes to me and has a physical problem, and whatever their physical problem, maybe it's their gallbladder or something, they might, it's not a good example. Let's say, for example, they're getting tension headaches and migraines frequently, okay? And that's actually, in a sense, related to their neck position and their ergonomics of how they're sitting. That's part of your physical health. But a perpetual migraine gives you mental torment as well. So your mental anguish
Yes.
is part of it as well. So if you had to say physically, your physical being is affected, your mental being is affected emotionally, and then we go through 12. So now there are 12 pillars of health, or branches of health. Or if you actually took a wheel and you had 12 spokes of the wheel, like the hours of the clock, and each one of these facets was a branch of your health. And we can go through them.
That'd be great.
And then you score yourself 0 to 10 out of that. So you score yourself on your physical health as maybe, well, not too bad. I'm an 8 out of 10. Why? Well, because I'm looking after my nutrition and my water that I'm drinking, and my sleep is still okay. And that's all part of your physical being. Okay. And then my physical structure, my body, my exercise, my movement that I'm doing, stretching, flexibility, etc. Then there's number 2, mental. That's your mental health. How's your mood? How's your mind? How's your psyche? Are you dealing with stress and your anxiety and your challenges that you're actually dealing with?
And your relationship to your thoughts.
And your relationship to your thoughts.
So
correct.
many people are too identified with with the inner critic. But yes,
the inner critic. And another way of actually pointing the inner critic out is actually having the person remove themselves from their chair and be the spirit. The spirit man sitting in the chair next door. In other words, this is the Ryall in this physical body, but the spirit is greater wisdom and all encompassing from before and after. It's your spirit. And so also start to learn to nourish your spirit, the spirit man. Then there's your relationships. So that's involving your intimate relationships, your sexual health. We know about sexual health. Then,
well, even just the relationships, because I know we touched briefly on it earlier, but it's a good time to bring up that are we all?
yes.
Because I think with relationships, the relationship always has to start with yourself first, and not out of vanity.
Yeah, with you.
And narcissism, and where it's me before everyone, but it's these self-care things of looking after, like even you, I guess part of these 12 pillars, but the relationship starts with loving yourself before you can love a partner and
Sure.
bring things to the world. So
Sure, and we're supposed to say that. We're supposed to love ourselves first. I think
but
loving...
it sounds selfish.
Yeah.
People,
No, we're supposed to, and also I think we're supposed to actually love ourselves to an extent of be so grateful for what I've got and for how I'm built and how unique I am and how I'm made. And to like yourself. We as beings constantly, especially, many men compare themselves to other men, and there's this toxic masculine envy that goes around where you compare yourself and gauge yourself against another man. And
you're often comparing on some material body level. You know, he's got bigger biceps or a better car.
Yeah.
Not like the depth of who he is as a man. You know,
his character, his ethic, his ethos, his what makes him a great man.
Yes.
And so there's this pecking order that we level ourselves on, and I think often we forget that if I'm reflecting myself and comparing myself against you, there's elements of the mirror that reflects back to me that I am actually seeing myself in you, and I'm just changing the scale of the order, a 7 or 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, whatever it might be.
And that's that's also the idea of the shadow, and you're often projecting onto others with the comparison of these defects or unrealized potential within yourself. And then, the real comparison comes to comparing yourself to who you were yesterday or last month or last year. It's often amazing. Like I've written in journals and goals and stuff, and when you really go back in your journals and you reflect 2 years ago, 5, 10, you can really see that's a good comparison. Hopefully to be moving in.
It's been very easy for me because I've had people who haven't seen me for 5 years.
Yes.
And then they come back from overseas, or they move to, they haven't come to me as a doctor for 5 years. And then I see them, and then they say to me, what have you been up to? Well, And so the I is giving myself, it has been to give myself the greatest input methodically, consistently, and out of that comes the divine masculine as well, which is, I love the story of the divine masculine.
But it's just to go back, is that one of the wheels after relationships?
Oh, so we've got relationships.
Yes.
So we got career.
That's good, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go through those 12.
Yeah,
So,
let's go through the 12.
So the love, sex, and relationships being one. Your intellect, your intellectual health, and your studying, and your, are you topping yourself up
Yes.
with resourceful information and wisdom? Your wisdom teaching, basically. That's part of your health. And if you're not having wisdom teaching, you could become quite scrawny in your health, Your career, then that's with it also economics and finances. Your creativity, and although one might be in a non-creative environment, creativity as a form of expression is very important, because I've heard someone once say that we create our lives way before we even start them.
Yeah.
In
some unseen realm.
With Source and God designing it with us. And then we forget about the journey, and when we arrive on Earth, we go through the journey, not realizing that we've actually designed this exact moment. And thought it through. Yeah. Creativity, your social health, your groups, your friends, relationships that are good, relationships that are toxic. Are you able to see those for what they are and remove yourself from them? Good, healthy ones. Your environment, the built environment. Living in a space, living in a serene, quiet setting with peace, with tranquility, with orderliness, sunshine, ability to shop at shops and have resources at your fingertips, convenience and ease of living. It is a healthy environment, or noise pollution, or toxic light, or whatever it might be. And then I've also written in a branch of health is your justice, your law, your governance, your are your frameworks in place in your life? Do you have trusts and wills in order? Are you seeing? Are you going to be leaving a mess when you pass on in life? Or have you thought that thing through for the benefit of the very people that you love?
That's when someone was too stuck in the eye and they never got to we and all.
Out of that also comes the to-do list, and I think the biggest, the bucket list, the to-do list, the pleasant events that should happen in your life, and the admin and the PT that has to take place. And I think that number 12 is your life vision, is your calling, is your full purpose and your reason for living here on this earth. And it changes as we go through our lives, but are we touching your life vision and your purpose?
There's an idea in the book The Way of the Superior Man where he almost speaks about finding your purpose and dream as, he doesn't use the word onion, but it's maybe like an ethereal onion.
Yeah.
And as you move through life, you pierce layer after layer, uncovering your purpose and meaning. And, that comes by trial and error, and it might be, like adventuring on the yachts, and, it's not for me, and it, maybe I was supposed to be an accountant, and that layer gets dissolved, or the lesson you've learned then as you start to uncover who you truly are and how your authentic self wants to be expressed. I guess the real success in life is following that and acting on it, because it sounds like so many people on their deathbed, that's one of the number one regrets, is having not followed the calling, or not having done what they really wanted to do as a career or vocation. It doesn't always have to be your career. If you wanted to be a singer, it doesn't mean it just means you have to sing. You don't have to do it for a living. And taint the dream sometimes.
Yeah, sure. No, it's very true, Gary. I think the energy gets diluted with more than one person. So if I'm paying attention to myself, I'm going to be propped up, overflowing with energy to be able to flow into the lives of the people around me that I rub shoulders with and that I influence. And the all, which would be the people that would be influencing life. What you're doing through these podcasts as well is it's allowing a platform like this to exist, where part of my I and my strength and my inner magnificence, let's call it, can spill over into the lives of those that want to be greater, or that see perhaps the greatness in other men and want to become like that.
Yeah, I think so much stuff is done. You're always trying to alleviate pain in the world and avoid unnecessary suffering. And some people, you can tell by their lifestyle choices so early that you're going to suffer in the long term if you don't correct this. But there's that one famous song, Poor Young Grandson, you have to learn just like me, and that's the hardest way. It's almost like no matter how much you drill stuff until someone learns by life lessons and experience, but sometimes it can be that little divine spark that sets a different train of thought, or plants a seed, sets it in motion. So it's a great time to chat about the divine masculine, because I think if you are focusing on the I, as a man operating in the world, and you're trying to share that magnificence, as you said, out in the world, a lot of that is connecting with the divine masculine and feminine, but acknowledging that divine masculine with you and bringing it out into the world, which I think in today's culture it's been tragically labeled, and the idea of being masculine has just been too inflated with being toxic. And I did another podcast with someone else, but she was like, she doesn't believe in the term toxic, she believes in the term wounded.
Yes.
And so much of it is acting from the wounded masculine, where we've lost our rites of passage, we've lost our connection to elders, we've lost connection with these role model men to look up to.
Yeah.
And it does seem like that, at least from my perspective, is changing with the landscape, with things like podcasts, where people are given the platform and the freedom to speak and people to inquire, and things like workshops, and I think also what you're trying to create.
Yes.
So it'll be a great time. Your views on divine masculinity and what you're building.
In actual fact, you said it says wellness, WHOA, wellness, health optimization, and accountability. And if you actually combine that with the stop, pause, reflect, take time, and give yourself number one, and place yourself in as number one for a moment. That's divine masculinity is viewing masculinity through a spiritual or holistic lens. It's there are masculine traits and there are feminine traits, and so to really, really get into it, the traits such as strength, courage, integrity, being assertive, not passive and recipient, but being disciplined, being courageous. I think compassionate leadership. Compassion can be a feminine trait, but it can be a very strong masculine trait if it's given with leadership. Adventure, then you think of the warrior, the protector. You think of the farmer, the provider. I remember reading a really good book, Gary, called Wild at Heart. And there's a short course on it over 6 weeks. It's like a half-hour video for 6 weeks that we take men through. It's all about men, the divine masculine. And what's interesting is that he talks about the creation. He uses the creation story of man made from dust of the earth. And he's basically formed from wildness. And there's this wildness, dust and formation. And out of that, God's source creates the masculine man. And he is outside of the so-called garden. But what he does is he places him in a garden and asks him to take care of the garden, to tend it, to protect it, to guard it, to increase it, and look after the animals and the plants and everything that goes with it. And so he had to become the farmer. He had to become the warrior to protect his territory. He had to become the wildness was the adventurer, and he had to be the creator of an organization and of something that was going to be in his garden. But he had no one to share it with, and that was when the woman came in, and she wanted to be pursued. He was the pursuer. All right? She wanted to be loved. He was the lover. And her feminine trait just complemented his masculine trait. Mm. And so a story like Wild at Heart, or a book like Wild at Heart, is actually quite interesting to see that we all have this trait within us that we should express more and know also in a humble way, not to be too, let's say, arrogant, and actually in expressing your talents and your abilities and your character traits, but because then there can be deranged masculinity or toxic masculinity, sure. And that it becomes very, very harmful.
Because that's the thing. It's each one of those traits has this shadow side to it when in excess, yes. And every, like strength can be the greatest virtue, or you can use your strength to, torture others or use your power over them. Sure. Same with the warrior and stuff, but it's like in Spider-Man, it's like with great power comes great responsibility. And I think I've heard Jordan Peterson say this, it's better to be a monster under control than it is to be, I can't remember his other one, but it's basically like instead of to pretend you're so innocent, but it's to look within this masculine energy and realize there is, like real gold and value and embodying these traits, and it's hopefully striving for its best expression.
Yes.
So what kind of work are you doing at?
Well, I think just something that did happen to me was I did a 24-hour silent retreat with Aaron Green. We went to did a challenge up in the Berg, and a couple of the guys that were on the group I just spoke to beforehand on the car journey up, and I said, what you should be doing is we're going to go into the water, into the pond, into the pool, up as a berg, in the Berg there, up there. Make that a ceremony where you, and I relate to them the Jewish cultural mikveh, which is like a baptism or a ritual cleansing. Okay. And the Jewish women have a ritual cleansing like this after their monthly cycle. Okay. And, but it's actually when you come out of the water, as you come out of the water, so you leave behind with you all the disease, the dirt, the wrong, the sin, it falls out of you, and you come out of the water fresh and clean and ritually baptized, so to speak, cleansed. And so when we did that silent retreat up in the Berg, I knew that a couple of other guys were doing it as well. I had within me, because I wasn't able to speak it out, but within me my thoughts came up that I was releasing toxic masculine traits, and parts of me I was embracing the authentic divine masculine within me, and knowing that what I want to shine outwardly from my masculinity is something that people can identify as being, well, if that's what a man is like, then I like men. And if you can be who you really are called to be, and reflect that goodness of spirituality, the best version of yourself shines forth. And so the divine masculine sounds like it could be quite egocentric, but it's actually, if you work on it, it's not egocentric. It's because
it's putting the ego away.
It's it's exactly that's what it is. Yeah. And what do you think, Gary?
No, because I think the ego is the one that gets inflated and possibly wants more in excess and is never satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's constantly looking outside instead of looking within.
Sure.
And that Carl Jung quote, like he who looks outside dreams, he who looks within awakens. And I think a part of that idea is also awakening to that divine femininity that can also reside within everyone. I think they have both the masculine and feminine traits, and often that is holding and sitting with the emotion, because the masculine is always trying to analyze something that's wrong, and the feminine
solve the problem. Yeah,
the feminine just sits with it and surrenders at times, which is a hard one. That's part of when you're speaking earlier, like not being able to sit still, and there's always always something to do, and it's connecting with that deeper nature within all of us.
No, for sure. There's also something about doing a ritual together. And I knew when I did that challenge that a couple of the guys that did the ritual, when we couldn't speak, I said, well, what did it mean to you? It meant the world to them. It meant the world to know that there were some other brothers that were also unraveling and getting rid of the toxic masculine traits, whatever they might have been, shame or addictions or whatever, weaknesses in various areas, whatever they might have been. And so there's something about sitting around a campfire and just being in a group with the divine masculine being present.
I think it's archaic.
But it's masculine. It's archaic. There's something primal about it. And yet out of that, there's lots of masculine groups that are emerging through at the moment. A lot of teachings, under their sacred sons. There's the Iron Sharpens Iron course that's out there. There's the 33 series, which is about Jesus' life at the age of 33 when he passed on. But there's a lot of masculine work that gets done, and a lot of people in need of it. And I think what we're needing is the rite of passage you mentioned. We're so needing that again. We're needing men to actually identify a time of change where the mentors and the seniors and the wise ones mentor and impart wisdom and impart gifts and impart talents into and acknowledge them into the younger ones and let them flow in those gifts.
It's so tricky because at least the beautiful part of things like podcasts and the media, I think the elders are maybe getting their voice back, where there was a period where, for how many hundreds of thousands of years you would have always lived with your elders and ancestors till the end, and you would have always sought their advice. Now they kind of get pushed away into an old age home. And there's it seems like each generation there's more rebelliousness against how, old fashioned or archaic the elders actually are, instead of, seeking what wisdom people have to impart and share with you and taking it in and taking what works and what doesn't. And I think that's where the idea of ritual has also been lost here. You were saying, because I think it's so lost in modern culture, and the concept of it so separated from what it is. It's, you're dramatizing something spiritual and trying to bring something spiritual and mental and ritualizing it into the physical landscape. And when you do that with people, it solidifies something you're trying to work through or let go of or tune into, whether it's the spiritual part of yourself or a part of yourself you're trying to let go of. It's the beautiful art of ritual, but it's almost been too, I don't know, maybe it's like too equated with magic or something. Or like voodoo, I don't know. But I do think there's a beautiful thing in having ritual and then having your own daily rituals and practices.
I think having daily rituals and practices is something that younger men look for older men and say, is that your habit? That's a great habit. Okay, let me adopt that habit. It works for you. And so we all have to actually impart these little gifts of wisdom and habits to the younger ones is very, very fulfilling from a person of my age, and to see them grow and turn mediocrity into greatness, and to become the greatest versions of themselves. I think when I see somebody that's let themselves go in whatever areas it might be, they might think that it might be in their physical health, but they might have let them become complacent in their relationships and in their business work, and maybe been sloppy about certain things, and they need to tidy their act up. There's the masculine responds well to consequential In other words, there's a consequence if you don't. And if you do, these are the benefits. Structure. And that structure could be almost military-like. And military training imparts us very many different lessons and military stories around how organizations and empires can be built, established. Of course, you can get those that become debauched and turned over. But you get, the ideal is to have an organization of like-minded people who live in a certain area and who have a practice and an ethos and a belief system, and that is reflected throughout the organization. And can you imagine if we had more places like that on Earth, where only people that wanted to actually live that type of life choose to live in an environment? Why? Because that is one of the unique selling points of that environment, whatever that might be. A little village or a little, You think of your little French or Italian hill town villages, and how they've got everything that they need in a small little space, little chapel, little shop, few houses, and all their needs are met basically in a small village. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're very blessed to. I mean, it might not be the perfect ideal, but it's certainly close enough in Ballito. We've got a beautiful place there.
We've got a lot here. We really have got a lot to live.
So to speak there, you spoke about the lessons of war and training and what training has to offer.
Yeah.
Maybe we can chat about your journey of training and how your training with Aaron, what that's been like and how it's helped also recover from your spinal injuries, or maybe being to a place where you're so physically strong now you never thought you'd get there, probably post last surgery.
Yeah, so I knew that I had to train myself. I was not in good shape at all, and I knew that I needed training. And I heard recently that there's a gene that you can express for love of exercise or for not so much tolerance towards exercise. And those that have the gene of love of exercise are going to find it a lot easier to self-motivate to exercise. I don't have that. I need to be trained. I need to be shown. I need to pitch up at an appointment. And that's just the way it works for me. And it's taken a long time because naturally I believe limiting beliefs within myself that I wasn't really strong enough, big enough, good enough, able enough to actually transform the body that I had back then to the one that I have today. And Aaron keeps on saying to me I'm one of his miracles, because I shouldn't be doing half the things that I'm doing today that I was doing. I'm a changed man from 5 years ago, and that has taken me. The one thing that's really, really been consistent right the way throughout is just that I saw this as an adventure. And I thought, well, I'm going through an operation to finish off my spine. But what's going to be amazing is that I'm going to get my function back. And I'm going to be able to start moving my hand again. And my triceps are going to come back. And I've got all this to start looking forward to. So I embarked on it as a fun adventure, of which I was going to increase into my catalog of healthy habits. Exercise and method and habit after habit after habit that would allow me to train in different ways. So part of the training that Aaron's done.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you walk us through how it differs from a normal
gym?
So
normal gym, he's got everything that a normal gym has, with machines and a floor and mat and a boxing ring and punch bags and so on. But one of the training that he does is mental training, mind training. And what he would do is he blindfold you, and so he takes that sense away from you, and then you're silenced as well, so you're not allowed to speak. And then he would put a sandbag on your head with a bowl of water, a copper bowl of water, and then he'd make you hold a copper bowl and a copper bowl of water like this, and then he'd ask you to walk in a direction, stand on a tractor tire, get up on a tractor tire, balance, walk around it this way, walk around it that way, step down and walk straight back, and then open your eyes and get back to the right positions, and all blindfolded. And you're not allowed to cheat, and so you so want to cheat, but So you have to trust yourself. So this type of training, sensory training, we've done a lot of it. And you learn your intuition and your gut instinct starts to emerge. Now, remember, he did silent training for 3 years in the monastery, and he wasn't able to speak his problems out to anybody, and he had to learn it himself, and that was through the art of intuitive communication, in that your body just intuitively knows and understands.
Yeah.
So with Aaron, one of the methods that we'll do, say for example on a Thursday, we'll start with an ice bath, and we'll get into the water, and prior to that will be some breath work. So we're getting into the endorphins and the lift and the high. And when we get out of that ice bath, I literally feel like I'm a lion with a mane this big around me, because my aura has expanded so hugely right out there. And I've managed to stay with my head under water for a minute or so.
Wow.
And but it's 0 degrees and chunks of ice literally in. When you get out of that, your whole body has become bright red. You're literally red everywhere. It's crazy. And you just look and you feel the strength. You go to push-up position, and you can just stay there in a plank position. You can stay there forever. You just got so much power and so much
I think
energy.
you've built up that power and energy, because I've seen you, when I was doing that film on Aaron, and you're holding these positions with water balancing on every body part possible. And I don't think, if I had to put a timer on you, just 40 minutes or something.
No, I did. I've done even better than that since. So last, about 3-4 weeks ago, we did it again. And one of my British mates, who's a patient as well, but a tough guy, a real tough bugger. And he knows how to train. He trains hard. And he came in, and he stood against the wall, and we were balanced, and we had to just stay in a squat position.
Yeah.
And I think we were there for 10 minutes, just in a squat position. And I got into flow state. So now people ask, well, what is flow state? How do you get into flow state? So once you surrender to the state of your body must fall into order and instruction from the mind, and the spirit is willing and wanting to win victoriously through this conquest. And so you just allow yourself to just be obedient to the body, and then I find that plant medicine helps, without a doubt. If I've taken
what kind of plant medicine?
Both a marijuana vape.
Okay.
It helps me slow me down, because, as I say, I find it very, very hard to slow down.
Yeah.
And then just getting into meditation beforehand. I must do that beforehand, and the breathing. Or I've also used microdosing of cubensis, psilocybin cubensis.
Okay.
And I find that very useful as well. But when I get into flow state, it's like suddenly everything becomes light. Everything becomes easy. And, the next day, your muscles should be sore. They should even be shaking while you're in flow state, and they don't.
Oh.
You just stay there in that position. You can then, he'll say 10 push-ups, you just do 10 push-ups. You just surrender to the process of, you've got a commanding officer who knows best for you. You trust him implicitly, and you'll just go with the,
Yeah, I think that's a big lesson in life. It's like this paradox of surrendering, but having the courage to fight as a warrior, but it's surrendering to, I guess, the
outcome.
The critic, surrendering to the outcome.
And you see the outcome for what it is, as victory, but the journey, you can't predict the journey, but you just know that you can. I mean, that's part of manifesting, is that you feel the exhilaration of the manifestation of the outcome at the end of that getting into that flow state and squatting there for 10 minutes and staying there with a water bottle balanced on my head and on my hands, and staying in squat position and just being there, and knowing that the victory afterwards is, I nailed it, I did it, and I feel good about myself, and I congratulate myself for that. So
did you use the techniques like that, like manifesting, for your recovery from your operations at all?
Yeah. So I didn't know how to meditate, Gary, and I had to go through. I used from Mind Valley University, the 6-phase guided meditation by Lakiani, and that's a good meditation 101 for anybody who wants to learn how to meditate. Yeah, and I then I adapted it from those. And remember, my recovery from my operation, the last one, was 6 weeks. So I had 6 weeks at home, and that was for one purpose only, and that was to fully and utterly restore myself.
Yeah.
And so during those times, I took plant medicine. Yeah, I got downloads. I had visions and wrote down documents and had a lot of mental thrills that actually took place during that time as well, and a lot of it was a lot of fun time as well during it, and it was interesting.
Yeah. So
no, carry on. I was going to change something.
was there? Did you have an intrigue in plant medicine and stuff before? What's your take on that as an ally for healing for people?
Well, if I knew that I could feel calmer, because if you've got this PTSD and you're racing and chasing inside of you, and you go into an exercise and your trainer says to you, just do some push downs or pull downs, whatever it might be. And you get into that position and you suddenly realize you're doing it too fast. And he says, slow down. And you hear that for the millionth time. Mm-hmm. And so you slow down and you start to do it slowly and properly. And you breathe, and then you get more effective at it. And you start to see and feel the muscle actually behaving and working slowly and consistently with you. Very advantageous. Plant medicine, the intrigue there is, well, if there's something that's going to help me get into this state easier, quicker, more mindfully, meaningfully, then I'm going to try that, knowing, though, that I'm going to be open and curious to the outcome. And it's like there's a lot of medications out there, for antipsychotic medications, for example. And some of them I've been on before as medications. And there was one that I was on for 2 years, and I can't believe it made me like a zombie. I was going through depression. It was part of the PTSD, and I was going through the depression after one of my operations, and I was flat, man, Gary. I was low. I should never have been on that medication. Took myself with that medication, spoke to the psychiatrist, changed it, and different person on the next one.
Yeah, I'm excited for the days when microdosing is included in the psychiatry prescription, because
so am I. Yeah. Because there's some definite benefits
on the horizon. Yeah, for sure.
Well, there's nothing to stop a person like myself actually making those recommendations. I had someone in this morning for exactly that, and it was for ADHD, and I'm ADHD, and both my sons are ADHD, and so I know what a Ritalin does and what the short-acting and the long-acting ones do. But I also am taking at the moment a combination of ashwagandha, scaletium, green kratom and white kratom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Kratom are interesting.
What is kratom?
Kratoms are they're plants that the white kratom is very, very good for concentration and focus. The red kratom's for sleep and for pain and inflammation. The green kratom is for speed of recovery and exercise.
Okay.
So there's different ones for different things. There's one that it's got moringa in it as well, and it's got lion's mane mushroom.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
So it's got a decent amount of lion's mane mushroom. So you actually, I take that as a daily supplement because I've got all my nutrients in there as well.
Yeah.
And I've got the adaptogen benefits of ashwagandha and the benefits for the hormones and muscle recovery and fitness and training. So I take that, and then there's a low dose of lion's mane mushroom. So helps me focus. And I would still take a Ritalin if I really needed to.
Yeah, if you need it.
But generally I'm now on something that's a good, safe alternative. And it works.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people don't believe that these things work. And they've got to be a little bit more open-minded to trying and knowing that there are a lot of other... Western medicine's not just everything.
I think it's changed. Yeah, I mean,
it's changing now.
I mean, I just got accepted to the Psychedelic Coaching Institute, but they were outlaying a study that was recently done in New Zealand. Yeah. And so in New Zealand, it's been decriminalized, and 80 participants were given LSD to microdose for a period of, it was longer than 8 weeks.
wow.
And the benefits only really showed up after about 3 to 4 weeks. And so in everyone's mood, about 60% of the people had no depression after, and like overall elated moods and better focus, productivity, better overall feeling. And it kind of like, if you look at the chart, it kind of sits a bit stagnant, and then it increases in mood at about 3 weeks, and then it kind of plateaus again. And then at about the 8-week mark, it goes up again. So it's quite interesting. But they had a different protocol, because there's different protocols in how you'd microdose LSD to psilocybin. Yeah. And I can't think of the exact, it's maybe like 2 days on, 3 days off. I could be wrong, where I think psilocybins can be a bit more consistent. And there's things like the Paul Stamets protocol, where you microdosing also with cordyceps and lion's mane and stuff. But super fascinating, in a double-blind study with 80 participants in New Zealand.
That's amazing.
Incredible thing, and amazing, phenomenal results. So, I think it's one of those things that it can't be ignored. And I think so many people are waiting for the governments to catch on, just to be able to practice it without the risk of being thrown in jail, I guess.
But I'd also say that, Gary, what you're putting out these podcasts is very important, because a lot of wise people with great bundles of knowledge that are oozing to express themselves with the right audience.
Yes.
And to me, what's going to be a must, and it must be a challenge as well going ahead, is to coordinate getting small groups together, and small groups to bond together and do life together, even if it's a monthly meeting. And those monthly meetings will, and to have forums, and then like-minded other groups connecting all together. Like once a year, you have all your small groups connecting together again. And I think once you start getting a coaching audience for yourself, I would say there's huge opportunity for people are waiting for this. People are waiting to learn and to empower themselves for more, build themselves up, and redesign their lives. And that's where I sort of see the 12 branches of health being important, is to redesign your life and become a magnificent person within yourself.
And so what is your coaching process like with people?
So I did that coaching course, and I did it for myself to be coached. So I was coaching myself, and then after that imparted it to others. So I think for me, I'd like to actually see I'm in my 60s now, I'm 64, and I'd like to start seeing a new phase of my life come out, where I start to impart coaching wisdom and be part of coaching groups, and do that with health and wellness as being, the WHOA is WHOA, WHOA, slow down, pause, and let's embrace health and wellness, and let's do life together, and constantly build and work at ourselves and improving ourselves, and just honing and shining and polishing this vessel that I am into becoming more and more magnificent. And it was like polish the brass up that's within you. Just let yourself shine out, and be this magnificent being that you actually are. It's quite a humbling thing as well, Gary, because you don't want to come across as somebody who has knowledge, because the knowledge is within. But if people know, I think what's the great challenge is for people to say, well, where do I get this? How can I acquire such knowledge? Well, I would say start with healthcare professionals. Start with asking them if they know of people. Start looking at small media groups that at forums, and start following the authorities that you, Paul Chek and Peter Attia and Zach Bush, and I love Andrew Huberman's stuff.
He's amazing.
Totally, I want to meet that man one day. I really do. I want to invite him to my house.
Manifest it.
Yeah, I want to have him, and manifest it, Andrew. Yeah, but Gary, it's. I think the challenge is to put it out there and to invite the souls in to actually then become a tribe and become part of a coaching tribe, a coaching culture. Really, yeah.
I think it's also, as you said, they're inviting people in. And part of the thing with coaching people, like giving them advice, is for that advice to be invited from the people.
Yes.
And I think the more you embody that success within yourself and those lessons and that embodied wisdom, the more that gets invited. And I'm sure you've experienced that, because people no longer, I don't know, I've been to so many doctors where I'm like, they look so fucking unhealthy to me. Like, like, how is that the Minister of Health? I'm not speaking about any country in particular, but how do these people actually know about health? And it's not just about they're taking your meds, it's so much deeper. And I think you've gone on such a journey. If anyone had seen you years ago, when you're quite a unit these days, and you can see it in your posture and your skin and the way you carry yourself, that you walk in
reversed my age. Well, it's very interesting. I'd love to actually do it. Imagine if we got a bunch of 12 guys, because I think of 12 being an ideal sort of number. Comes in repeated cycles.
Yes.
But a bunch of 12 guys, and you say, right, we're gonna go on a journey together. It's a year, but we're gonna see ourselves at this point and see ourselves at that point, and what do we want to accomplish? And each one of those 12 start to manifest and design and do more meditations and upskill ourselves in all these areas. I'd love to see more warriors graduate with warrior graduation programs and basically then become warrior teachers to others, and so have that ripple effect of imparting wisdom more and more.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful. Even the idea of it being a year, I think so many people nowadays, they're trying to market, fix your mind in 3 hours, or do this in 21 days, or lose fat in this.
Hesitating, because it's usually, mine's been the journey of 5 years.
Yeah. But I think real change and growth and healing is not an overnight process, and it's probably a minimum of a year's work for anyone just to start that journey. And I think for a lot of people that's maybe daunting, and it's not what you want to hear.
Well, I did the whole of body coaching course, which was nutrition, physical exercise, and then personal wellness and personal being, your inner man. And I did that over 4 months.
Yes.
The preparation before that was a little bit before, so I'd say it's 5 months. But then 2 to 3 months after that, I was still actually honing the exercise, nutrition skills, and all that I'd learned was still being, I was still dealing with it.
Yes.
So there's no ways that was even completed in just 1 year.
Yeah.
My journey's been 5 years long. I've been training with Aaron for 4.5 years now.
I think it started at conception, perhaps.
Probably, yeah.
Well, the sounds of the dreams.
Yeah, the dreams, yeah. Who knows what I was, and if I'm right about it, us, you and God one day in heavens decide that you're going to write this life script, and oh, by the way, you're going to meet a guy called Aaron, and by the way, he might just sentence you to silence for 3 years if he had his way. But if you want to learn the victory of what you came on this earth to do and to become, then embark on this journey, and you'll discover it along the way. And that's the thing, you do discover it along the way.
Do you think you get called to these people you're supposed to work with? Maybe a different way of putting it is, I think you can feel it energetically when there is something to learn from someone.
Yeah.
There's like a calling towards them, and
yes, like
if
if I had
respond to that body sensation.
If Andrew Huberman had to knock on the door here and knock in and sit down with us, we'd have a great conversation. He would say this was a meant to be meeting, because we're connecting on a level that's just
yes,
same. We're connecting, And so when you put out that energy into the universe, you get that attraction back. It's magnetic. You know, Gary, if you think of your work being audacious and big and magnificent, the work that you're doing, if you think of it as being something that there's greatness in what you're trying to do, then it actually gets easier because you have the magnets and you are the attraction and the people will come. You don't have to worry too much about that, so that somehow the people come.
Yes.
What's really important is to identify that the people that are coming, because there are people and people, to make sure that the people that you have attracted can have the ability and stickability and the guts and grit and determination to be able to endure through the process of transformation. Yeah.
Yeah. But even, you know, there's a saying, you can only meet someone at the layer in which you've met yourself.
Sure.
And I think it's you kind of called to, you know, they always say the teacher arrives at the right moment.
Yes.
And I guess it's acting on whether you're ready to work with that person. And
Sure.
yeah, but it's also gauging with who's the right fit of people to work. Because, I mean, it's that same thing as you were saying, like that you feel like there will be an energetic and easy intellectual exchange with Andrew Huberman or someone because, you know, I guess that's like a false experience where I guess some people, you just know that there's maybe too many blockages or ego or too many closed ideas around stuff to actually work in a more holistic sense.
Yeah.
Some people are very closed off to the idea that food will impact your health or your healing process.
Yeah.
It just seems so obvious to me. And that's, I mean, that's just like a cat not the bag example, but so it's, I guess, finding, and like you said, from the blindfold training, you know, learning to trust that intuition. And I think you're in the right place when it is people you can openly and authentically express your views on health and healing and life, you know.
You see, alongside this journey with Aaron has been my journey with my wife. And that's been a very, very close journey of intentional. We've been married 38 years. And to actually say, you know, we're at a stagnant stage and we don't want our journey to remain in the stagnant stage. We want to become more fruitful. We want to become more productive and more lively. And so we've had to work on that as well. So alongside Aaron, who's my physical trainer and coach, I've got a psychologist who I've been seeing for 3 years in Durban once a month, just to keep things going so that I'm also on the straight and narrow, and then I am dealing with my issues and my personally as well. And then I've got another brother friend who is in Australia, and he sends me a message every single day, and he has done so since 2020, beginning of 2020. And he said to me, you need this stuff, you need support, you need stuff. I'm going to send it to you, a lot of spiritual messages. He just thinks about something and he sends it to me. And then I've got another friend, Jono, in Durban, that I was best friends with at school. So I've got 5 that I can turn to. And once again, that's part of the Jesus at 12. 5 is a good way to start, and then you have another core group of people that you have a greater walk and a closer walk with. And you let them into a little bit more of your home space, so to speak.
I think it's a soul connection.
Yes.
You're connecting on a deeper level.
Yeah. There are many men and women out there hungry for soul work, Gary. And you know, it's really not for everybody. As far there's a
it's paradoxical because everyone has a soul. But I know what you mean.
But it's great, man.
And if you wanted to leave advice for people wanting to start to embark on their own journey of health, connecting with a deeper part of themselves, and I guess it's bad for business, but I guess the bigger goal is like, how do you go to the doctor less, with serious health implications. Yeah.
I think what you've got to do is you've got to find, unfortunately, I'm speaking from a position of privilege, to be able to have the privilege to give out a lot more of my time than I would normally in a quick consultation. So I can actually take a lot longer than 15 minutes, so to speak. But also, as you become more skilled over the years, you pick things up and manage to treat them as effectively in 3 minutes as you would in 15 minutes way back then. Same condition. But I think if you set your right intention, you'll be led to the right person. And ask and you'll get guided. And that somehow, somewhere along the line, you'll get guided to a coach or a healthcare professional. You might find that it might be your physiotherapist who's speaking to you while you are having a therapy session. And that person mentions somebody, and then that's your lead. But if somebody wants to embark on a journey of personal transformation, I'd be very happy to encourage them along the way. But so would you. But I think seek you'll find, then follow the podcasts and the influencers. And maybe you must mention some of the influencers we've spoken about in your reels.
Yes.
Yeah. But I would say, also look at the greatest influences in your own personal life. Maybe journal a little bit about them, and also maybe spend more time with them. Those people who are maybe, in your state, the people that are my age, and who are they, and who could rub shoulders with me and maybe let me glean a little bit of their goodness and their influence and the intelligence, and learn from that, see from it, glean from it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gary, it's been a great chat. I think
seek the elders.
Seek the wisdom of the elders, and they say there's a culture in Africa where when the baby's born, the baby is presented to the oldest grandmother or grandfather, who's the one that's about to depart into the unknown, into the spirit realm. And when that oldest grandmother or grandfather holds the baby up and looks in their eyes, knows that they've just come from the unknown, and they're the youngest, and they've brought with them the wisdom that gets forgotten while we're here on this journey on earth. And I think it's just a lovely analogy of them, the oldest one meeting the youngest and then naming them, and they give them their name and their calling, and there's often a calling into a name as well in those sort of cultures. But it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. So you've got your calling, I've got mine, and let's keep on doing what we're meant to do. Yeah, and more of it.
Thank you so much, Ryall. I'm sure
my pleasure, Gary.
This won't be the last one.
It was a great time to talk. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. All right.
Thank you.